Can a career change everything? Imola 2025 not only marks the beginning of the European section, but also a battle that can decide the fate of the great teams this season. But are they all prepared? After 6 major awards, appearances no longer deceive. Trends are real, strengths are visible, and weaknesses, too. The initial surprises have given way to a hierarchy that, although it is not definitive, does begin to mark the tone of what this season can be. And in that hierarchy, there is a clear leader, McLaren. Not only because of the numbers, but for the feeling of control that project a career. Oscar Piastri, with 131 points and 3 consecutive victories, is today the most complete pilot of the championship. Its performance is the product of a perfect connection with the MCL39, but also of accelerated personal growth. The way in which you run around under pressure, the strategic reading it demonstrates in the race, and the ability to minimize errors make it a formidable rival. And we are not talking about a veteran. This is just his 3rd year in the category. The level that is reaching is what many expected to see in Lando Norris. And yet, it is Piastri who has taken the step forward. Norris is not far behind. With 115 points, its season has been equally solid, with regular podiums and a key victory in Australia that opened the season. Together, they form the most balanced duo of the championship. But that same internal equality can be, later, a focus of tension. The MCL39 has been described by its own team as an aggressive evolution of its predecessor. Unlike other teams that opted for radical redesign, McLaren opted to refine and strengthen what was already working. Key aerodynamic adjustments, a more efficient suspension, and above all, a technical platform that allows you to refine the balance of the car quickly. This has given them an advantage that has resulted in results. Its rhythm in the race is consistent, and its superior tire management. Even when they have not been the fastest on a return, they have managed to play their cards with intelligence. But there is an unknown. How will this car behave in such a technical, narrow, and demanding circuit as Imola? Ferrari arrives as a direct rival, but still in the process of reconstruction. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton was a statement of intentions. His experience, his ability to adapt, and his knowledge of what is needed to win championships have transformed the environment into Maranello. In China and Japan, Hamilton showed that he has not lost an apex of his talent. Despite facing a car with a very different character from the Mercedes that led for more than a decade, the British has been able to adapt quickly. His classification rhythm has been competitive, but it is in the race where he has shown. His strategic management and his ability to squeeze the SF25 in changing conditions make it a serious contender for the victory in Imola. And then is Red Bull, in a position that nobody expected at this point in the championship. Yes, Max Verstappen has achieved 2 victories in Japan and China. Yes, it is still one of the most complete pilots in the world. But RB21 is not up to its predecessors. It is a fast car in lines, but nervous in slow curves, unstable in braking, and with a much narrower configuration window than the equipment wanted. Verstappen has had to compensate with its talent for the problems of the car. But even he has a limit. The internal tension is evident. Liam Lawson's abrupt departure after only 2 races was a sign of despair. The entry of Yuki Tsunoda to the main team has been presented as a sports decision, but in reality it responds to an attempt to curb media wear and avoid a more serious internal collapse. In this race, in addition, other secondary actors enter the main narrative. George Russell has been the most consistent of Mercedes pilots. He has not won but has scored in all races, and his methodical style is beginning to bear fruit. Antonelli, his young partner, continues to learn, but his progression is real. In Williams, Carlos Sainz is shining with a car that, although limited, has been competitive in certain conditions. Alpine and Aston Martin, meanwhile, are trapped in an internal then external struggle. But they all know that a good result in Imola can change everything. Imola is not any circuit. Here, pole can mean half victory. Tire degradation is low, but errors are paid expensive. And more importantly, it is a layout where the pilot can still make a difference. It is no accident that favorites are concentrated in taking advantage of this race to mark territory. Because what is gone here, not only is it worth in points, is worth in narrative, in trust, in authority. And that, in a season as open as this, can be what the title decides. Emilia Romagna's Grand Prix is not only played on the Imola layout. It is also played in the agendas, in the alarm, and in the routines of millions of fans around the world. Formula One is not a national sport. It is a global industry. And each race, especially those held in Europe, must meet not only the technical demand of the circuit, but also to the time diversity of its followers. In a world where the content is consumed in real time, every second counts. Imola schedules are designed for European television, but the scope of the F1 transcends continents. In the United Kingdom, the race will begin at 2 p.m. It is an ideal schedule, full Sunday afternoon just at the mid-weekend. In South Africa, the race will also be broadcast at 3 p.m. local time. In a country with a growing love for Formula One, the situation changes radically when we move to the American continent. On the east coast of the United States and Canada, the race will begin at 9 o'clock in the morning. For more delivered fans, this is not a problem. The ritual of early Sundays to see Formula One has established itself as part of the fans' DNA. But it is still a challenge for the growth of the most casual public. On the Central Coast, the beginning will be even earlier, 8 a.m. And for those who live on the West Coast, the race will begin at 6 o'clock in the morning. An extreme schedule. Australia, as always, is on the other side of the world. There, the race will be broadcast at 11 p.m. on Sunday. This phenomenon of disparate schedules raises an unquestionable truth. Each Grand Prix becomes a unique experience, not only for what happens on the track, but for how, when, and where you live. While some gather with friends to see the race with coffee in their hand and lights off, others do it with beers and groves on in broad daylight. Formula One connects millions of people who do not share the same time, nor the same language, nor the same customs. But that joined for approximately 90 minutes for the same passion. And it is precisely in circuits like Imola where that connection is enhanced. Because it's not one more race. It is an appointment with history. The previous narrative is intense. The protagonists arrive with open plots and the accumulated tension of the first 6 races find here an explosion point. The whole world stops in different time areas to observe what will happen. To wonder if McLaren can extend his domain. If Ferrari can be redeemed at home. If Red Bull will avoid another stumble. Or yes, as many times in Imola, the unexpected will take control. Imola is not just one more career in the calendar. It is a catalyst, a turning point that cannot be ignored. On paper, it distributes the same amount of points as any other round. But in the competitive reality of the 2025 championship, it represents much more. It is the moment where the story of the season ceases to be a statistical projection and begins to transform into an irreversible narrative. Because what is lost here hardly recovers. And what is gone can make a difference that will feel until the last round of the year in Abu Dhabi. There are teams that come to Imola seeking to confirm their domain. Others try to avoid a crisis. Some simply fight for not disappearing from the media focus. But all, absolutely everyone, know that this clue has the power to amplify truths and destroy fictions. It is a career that, because of its history, for its design, for its time in the calendar, defines directions. Therefore, what happens in these 63 laps will not be anecdotal. It will be symbolic. McLaren knows. It arrives as the strongest team, but also as the most observed. His pilots are at the top of the championship, his car is the most complete, its internal structure is stable, and their engineers have executed millimeter precision since the first Grand Prix. But the challenge is not just to maintain that advantage. The real challenge is to demonstrate that leadership is not circumstantial. Imola is a technical track without generous escapes, where any error is paid with abandonment or critical damage. It is here where the real temper of a leading team is measured. If McLaren wins, he will send a message that does not need translation. This season is his to lose it. But if they fail, if for the first time they make a strategic error or an execution failure, the entire narrative can change in an instant. For Ferrari, Imola is not a race. It is a public trial. There is no room for excuses. Running at home not only implies media pressure. It implies being accountable in front of its own history. And that story is demanding. The Scuderia arrives with the hope of redeeming. Hamilton has shown signs of technical leadership, consistency, and adaptation. But he hasn't won yet. And every race that passes without a victory enlarges doubts. Leclerc, on the other hand, loads with the accumulated frustration of a season that seemed to have better foundations. In Imola, Ferrari has the opportunity and obligation to demonstrate that he is truly in the fight. A podium would be useful. A victory necessary. A failure devastating. Red Bull faces a different situation. They arrive not with ambition but with fear. Fear of losing control of the story, fear of accepting that the technical domain of recent years has ended, fear that its star pilot will be contemplating alternatives outside the team. Max Verstappen has kept the structure afloat, but even he needs results. Imola may be the place where everything is recomposed, or where it fractures definitively. The decision to replace Liam Lawson by Yuki Tsunoda has been interpreted as an emergency gesture rather than strategy. If in this race they do not achieve results, the question will move from the pilots to the team as a whole. RB21 has strengths, but also structural defects that are not solved with pure talent. If the car fails here again, the echo of the disaster will be deafening, and there are other actors that also play more than it seems. Mercedes seeks consistency. George Russell has been a rock. He has not made serious mistakes, has scored on each appointment, and represents a solid base for the future. But the brand needs more than stability. You need overwhelming results. Antonelli is still in the process of training, but every weekend that passes without a flash of genius, he moves him away from the media narrative. In Imola, Mercedes must demonstrate that its reconstruction is not just a promise. It is a real process with tangible results. And now that we have analyzed everything, the question that remains in the air is inevitable. Will this be the race that changes the course of the championship? Because in Imola it is not just about winning. It is about resisting the pressure, of executing without margin of error, of demonstrating that what was achieved so far was no accident. It is not improvised here. Here those who understand the moment are enshrined. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris arrive with the burden of the one who leads, but also with the responsibility of maintaining a rhythm that until now has seemed perfect. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc have the pressure to redeem in front of their fans, with a car that has not yet said their last word. Max Verstappen faces his own shadow, and a car that no longer responds as before. And behind, teams like Mercedes. Therefore, this race does not end with the checkered flag. Start there. What we will see in Imola this weekend will resonate in Monaco, will be discussed in Barcelona and condition the entire second half of the year. It will be a reference point, an emotional marker, a before and after. Now it's your turn. Who do you think will be strengthened from this challenge? Can McLaren continue marking the rhythm? Will Ferrari find redemption to his people? Will Red Bull show real recovery signs? Or will you only deepen your crisis? Leave me your opinion in the comments. But do not respond only for intuition. Think as a strategist would. Think as if you had the fate of the championship in your hands. And if you enjoyed this analysis, don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel to not miss more content.